Welcome all. Thanks for joining us tonight for our fifth and final GMS Club drop-in session for this autumn. Thanks for joining us. I know you've probably had a long day at work. It'd be great if you can pop in the chat how you're feeling today. Have you had a good day? Have you had a bad day? Maybe just introduce yourself. So we've got my colleagues Chloe in the chat tonight, so please say hello. Tonight's session is around getting the most from GMS and navigating GMS and helpful tasks. So some top tips. Welcome tonight. Thanks for joining in. I'm sure most of you have had a long day at work, so thanks for joining us tonight. If you can just move the slide deck on for me, Amy, that'd be spot on. So for those who are just joining, welcome. Thanks for joining us tonight. Some of you, this may be your fifth session. It might be your first. So you should be able to hear me. If you can't hear me, please check your connection. Ask in the chat if you need help. Chloe's in the chat tonight. She'll be able to help you if you're stuck. Usual scenario though was probably turn it off and turn it back on again if you can't hear me. If you can keep your mics on mute for tonight, while we're presenting and talking, that will help just for sound quality for everyone. A bit of general housekeeping, so keep your mics on mute. Please use the chat function if you have any questions as we're going through, and my colleagues in the chat will be able to answer some questions straight away. We do, as usual in this series, have a Q&A session. So we'll have this presentation. It sort of takes around 20-25 minutes, show you a nice broad range of areas, and then we'll have a chance to have an open Q&A session where we can come off mic on camera and stuff and ask the questions. If you don't have a mic, because I know that Les doesn't have a mic, I've seen Les join us tonight, just pop your questions in the chat and we'll kind of pull them out with that Q&A session as we've done before. We are recording the session tonight. We do intend on finishing at 7 o'clock, and this session will go on our RFU YouTube channel as per previous sessions. So you'll see there is a GMS series now of the previous sessions we've run, and hopefully you'll enjoy this session. Amy, you could just move the slide on. So just a bit of headline as well. So tonight is we've got a mixture of people on the call and across the country engaged in this. So it's looking at a broad range of areas. So there's some tasks, there's some people, if you're quite advanced with GMS, you might find some of the things that we're talking about tonight quite basic, but you might learn some stuff new. You know, every day's a school day, and we always learn something new, so you might learn something new, but just be mindful of the fact that we're looking at a broad range of topics and some real key useful bits tonight that will really help people within your clubs to navigate GMS and get the most out of it. So I'm going to pass over to my colleague Amy, and she's going to take us through the session, and I'll come back to you guys when we have our Q&A, and I hope you enjoy the session.
Hi everyone. So today's topics include top tips within the following areas: your personal profile dashboard, the people module, the organization profile module, and the organization admin module. So first off is your personal profile. So once logged into GMS, you will see your personal profile. On here, you have a few shortcuts or easy ways to perform certain actions. Some useful ones to mention include being able to affiliate yourself or a family member to a club from the text within the What Next box. Please note that the green box content differs depending on which family member is selected from the Family and Friends widget, as well as which organisation you have selected. In addition, there is a shortcut to editing your personal details by selecting the Edit on the top right-hand side. Club admins can also approve pending affiliations easily via the Pending Affiliations widget on the right-hand side, which takes you straight through to the affiliations. Please note though that this will appear based on the roles that you hold as admin. The user can also keep up to date with the player affiliation update via the notification box on the right-hand side. Finally, there is a search box at the top of the personal profile page, which allows for an instant search of an individual. A few more towards the bottom of the page include being able to view and access your teams under My Teams. In addition, there is the ability to view activity via the Activity widget. Activity includes unread emails, qualifications, and unpaid balances on memberships. A top tip here is to take away is that under unpaid orders, if you are interrupted in the process of booking a course, event, or paying for membership, then you can simply return to your personal profile and select here to complete any of these orders. You can also find a course or complete an event or a course to complete or an event to join within the upcoming events widget. Please note the user can also select the profile image icon on the top right-hand side, which quickly displays the full list of areas of a user's personal profile. For example, their communication history or set of qualifications. To actually navigate through the GMS modules, you select the app menu in the top left-hand side by selecting the 9-grid icon, where you can select various modules depending on the roles and permissions set to your account for the relevant organization. Please note that you can check you've selected the right organizations under My Organization. You can also use the magnifying glass to complete a search, and you can also use the double arrow icon to change between clubs should you have the relevant permission. Now for the people module. Please note access to this module is for those with permission level 2 or above. A few of the key functions here include adding people or family members, linking, adding, editing, and removing relationships, assigning roles and permission levels, merging records, and also removing users. It is really important to note, though, that removing users via GMS only removes the user from the club. The user's record will still exist on the GMS platform. Another feature is the email builder. Some top tips for this include remembering that it is best to format any text first in Notepad before sending the email, as Word can sometimes change the formatting slightly. Another top tip is that clubs are able to use the email builder to contact parents of players in a bulk message. Please note that parents' usernames will show at the bottom of these emails. This may be helpful at the start of the season as it allows parents to log in more readily. It is also possible to distribute these by age group by choosing to filter by age at the start of the season under the search filters. You can then tailor the message to the audience you are emailing. Also, attachments can be added to an email too, but please note that PDFs that may have a large file size can slow down the email distribution process. Please also remember that you can select the parents only option under the youth safeguarding box to prevent multiple emails going out to parents. The parents do need to be linked to the child, though, also have a valid email and be linked to the club to receive these emails. So another functionality is the ability to merge records. So as some of you may know, duplicates can get created from time to time. Administrators can merge these though, but just a few key things to please remember. So first of all, please ensure that the records are the same person. As you may know, the same name and date of birth may not always constitute matching records. Records with an active DBS or an active player registration role can only be merged by us at the RFU, so please log a help desk ticket for these. Finally, please always advise the user in question that their profile has been merged and is now attached to only a single RFU ID. In conjunction with the email builder, a select group can be created via the add a group function, which makes it easier to email the same group of recipients rather than having to select the same people over and over again when trying to send an email. Just a reminder though that you can also send an email from GMS, as mentioned previously. That when you send an email, from GMS, the user's username does appear at the bottom of the email. Please also note that the groups are unique to the user logged in. Another functionality is being able to add a relationship. So club administrators can add a relationship between two records to link them. The steps include the following. So simply locating the two users using the right-hand filters, selecting the More button, then selecting Add Relationship, and choosing from the type of relationship, for example, parent, child, or spouse. Please note, a top tip here is that if the users do not have the same surnames, then you can use the filters to perform a search for one and highlight this user, and then locate and highlight the second user with the filters again, and finally select the More option to then choose to add a relationship to link the two records. Another functionality is being able to send users their credentials. So this may be helpful when a user is unable to log in and therefore needs to reset their password. An email can be sent to the user with their username and a link to the GMS homepage, which then should allow them to log in. Finally, the allocation or removal of a role. So the ability to assign or remove a role to another individual at the organisation. This occurs by clicking on the record via the search process highlighted previously. I'll now hand over to my colleague Matt, who's going to talk you through firstly reports.
Good evening, everyone. Oh, a bit croaky. So in this area, I think what we've highlighted really is that there's the ability to export information from inside of the people module, and selecting those different elements can bring that information out into an Excel format that can then be manipulated. So you can manage that information as you see fit. So we need to obviously make sure that is managed securely, and that should only be exported really if required. So Amy, do you want to pass over onto the next slide? So in the organisation profile area, what we've got really is a number of functions that are available to clubs, but something that we ask clubs to facilitate on a regular basis is a review of their golden roles. So we just need to be mindful that a role can only be allocated to one person at a time. And that's really for RFU purposes, to make sure that we've got a key contact in all of those areas. What we ask clubs to do is if the role doesn't exist that they wish to add, they can also create one. So they can add an individual role as an administrator, and then use the job titles functionality to add a specific title against that individual role. So that might be a role that you only have at your club, or that you feel is relevant for the size of your club. You can then go and utilize that to make sure that you can search for that particular role holder at your club. So that's something to bear in mind if you can't see a role at your club. Another area that we've got access to is in organisation profile, is the ability to look at the details area of your club. And this is really important because this is what pulls through to the Find a Club area on englandrugby.com. So this is really beneficial if you're looking at how you may go and attract players. So there's the ability to add your social media tags there, make sure that your key contacts are up to date, and add the relevant telephone number in there. From a club logo perspective as well, you can add this in, and this will appear in a number of spots, but also on englandrugby.com. So it's worthwhile putting that image in there, as it can help sort of branding in a variety of different spots. If you go back one sec, Amy, if that's all right, thank you. There's the ability also to add in custom tags in GMS. So inside of the organisation profile, and something that clubs may not be aware of, there's a function called custom tags, which is available in the left-hand menu. And what that can do is enable you to store information against individuals' records. So it may be that you want to store, say, a shirt size, as we said there, a parking permit, or specific individual information. So you could set up whatever you like that custom tag to be called inside of the organisation profile area. And then on each personal profile, that field will appear. So you can, as an administrator, go and add that information into that individual record. So that might be something that might help you with some club specific tasks that the RFU aren't necessarily aware of. Another area that we wanted to cover this evening, and just make sure that the people on the call were aware of, is the reports section inside of the organisation profile. So you can see the menu there on the screenshot, but what this does is it enables you to access a number of pre-built reports inside of GMS. And by doing that, you can access some of the most common tasks really that we've experienced clubs requesting over the last few years. So that's developed over a period of time. So you access that is hit the organisation profile module, and anybody who's got access to that module can access that menu item, and then you'll see a drop down, and all of the available reports will appear in there. And then selecting those will enable you to export that information or view it on screen where appropriate. It's also worth probably calling out in this section that in the finance tab, we've covered this on a separate call with clubs when we highlighted the main uses of the finance tab. and the membership area, but there are also some reports that are available in the finance area. So if you missed that update 2 weeks ago, it would be worthwhile just going and watching that recording back for some more information around what's available in that module. Thanks, Amy. So some of the reports that we can highlight this evening, really. So the Club DBS report, that will enable you to view all of the individuals at your club that have a current or an expired DBS, and we've found that to be really useful for at club level and at CB level. That enables club administrators to really audit the state of play at their club with regard to those individuals that require DBS. So in those positions where those individuals have got sort of face-to-face contact in the age grade section of the club, it's worthwhile just having a look at that report on a periodic basis and making sure that that is as up to date as it needs to be. So that information could be accessed via the Club DBS report. We've also got the club training report, and that's something that we're actually working on updating at the moment. We're doing an audit of qualifications that exist in GMS, and we're looking at how we just make sure that's the most useful tool that it can be with regard to the qualifications that we recognise at the RFU. But what we've seen that report to be is quite a good sort of auditing tool in terms of what and who is being run at your club. So the individuals that exist as players within those teams, what sort of numbers look like across your club, how many coaches have you got assigned to those teams, and then what qualifications and sort of DBS have those individuals got. So is there a fair distribution of coaches across your club? And that's also quite a helpful tool at CB level as well, to determine sort of the health of some clubs and where some clubs may require support. And from a team and club participant reporting perspective, this is information that's going to pull from the electronic match card. So dependent on your club's use of electronic match card will depend on the information that gets spit out here, but that's accessible via the team report, team participant report and club participant report. And the main difference between the two really is the granularity that's shown on that report, and a sort of more of a club-wide view versus a team-wide view. So from a team participant perspective, what that will show you is all of the individuals that have participated in a fixture based upon the season that you select when running the report. So if you were running a 19-20 report, you could see all of the individuals that participated in fixtures for that season, and then a breakdown of the appearances that they made, and then the match events that they were involved in, if you had added them as a match card administrator. What that gives you is a bit of a sense of sort of regularity of play, and then a breakdown of some of the high achievers there. And that might be a nice way for you to go and analyse some of that information across the current season and previous seasons that you've been using that functionality. If you haven't started using the match card functionality yet, then this is probably a good way to sort of highlight what the information that you would be able to go and access inside of GMS. And some of the ways that you might be able to utilise that around your club, either as a management tool or as a recognise and reward, or just a facility for your coaches to have a regular access to point to. Across the club participant report, what that's really highlighting is a bit of a breakdown of sort of ages of individuals that have been put on match card, and that might be relevant, sort of winning streaks or losing streaks, depending on who's been placed on those match cards, and really just a bit of a snapshot of regularity of play and achievements. So that might be something that you might want to access as a club admin. Another area we thought would be helpful touching on this evening is the organisation admin module. Now, we introduced this back in 2018, and that was really to align with the introduction of UK GDPR. So what we completed was an overhaul of the roles and permissions that existed across all of our clubs and CBs in GMS. And previously, what the situation was that we had a number of roles that were available in GMS, and by adding a role to an individual, that gave a level of permission. And the permutations that came out of that ended up being in their thousands. And that was very difficult for both the RFU and clubs and CBs to manage who had access to what. So what we decided was to introduce a model that was really based on a set of 5 key levels. And each of those levels had a different permutation with regard to the number of modules that were accessible. So in the organisation admin module there, you can see there's a split of 5 levels of permission across GMS, and then a couple of specific permission levels that were based around access to a GMS Club website in this example. But each of those levels of permission can be viewed by a level 5 administrator. So level 5 administrators get access to this organisation module. And then they can go and view each of those levels and then who has access to those levels. So that screenshot might be a little bit small there, but we'll send these slides around for those that are not as familiar with this module. But the number of users there can then be selected, and you can view all of the individuals at your club that currently have that level of permission. So what this really is meant to be is a good tool for clubs to go and be able to complete a regular audit on who has access to what at your organisation. And we see this being quite relevant at the moment, and we're actually in discussions internally around how we best make use of some of that information to update clubs and give them a little bit of a prompt to go and review this to check that all permission holders are up to date and correct. So that's just a little bit of a whistle-stop tour of some of those key functions that we've got available in GMS, and a few sort of handy tips thrown in. I suppose what I'd like to do now is just hand back to Ian, and I can see plenty of questions have been coming through on the chat. So it might be a good time to hand it back over to Ian and open the floor up for any questions.
Cheers, Matt, and thank you, Amy and Matt, for taking us through the wide array of areas there, which was really good. And yeah, that's some good questions coming in the chat, and I've seen that Chloe's been beavering away answering a lot of them. But I'm just going to kick off one that just picking out there is from Martin Renard in Staffordshire. And the question is, do the RFU see increases in the electronic match card in the age grade game, and will it be mandatory in the future?
I can probably take that one in if we've got no one from the competitions team on the call. So I would suggest yes. How we go about that, Martin, is probably a question that we're working through at the moment. It's probably going to be staggered around different age groups, and we've also got to be mindful of the sort of the competitiveness of that information and the relevant age groups that would interact with that. Where we see this being really beneficial moving forward is probably those age groups just under 18. So if you sort of think about gamification of statistics and things like that, where that might be really helpful for individuals to understand is that probably sort of 15, 16, 17 age groups where they might like to see their name up in lights on englandrugby.com if appropriate, and it may be also a really good tool for clubs to go and look at. So there's ongoing conversations there with both the competitions department and also with the team that focus on age grade internally, to think about the sort of speed that we go at there. But it's certainly our plan to roll that out further into the age grade game, with probably some more advancement ahead of the 22-23 season. Just one final point on that. We are also looking at how individuals of an appropriate age go and manage their records themselves, or have the ability to go and manage their records themselves. And what we would see there is the ability for those individuals to log in and actually go and interact with their own information inside of their GMS profile, and that may include sort of interacting with their own stats on a regular basis. So that's obviously something that we're working through at the moment, as I mentioned, but it's probably quite relevant in the way that individuals of those age groups may go and manage accounts already. If you look at things like social media and the way that they may interact with profiles at school and those sorts of things. So So yeah, we're constantly looking for feedback in terms of direction of travel there, but that's something that we're working through at the moment. A little bit of a long answer, but hopefully that's given you a flavour of what's happening.
Thanks, Matt, and thanks, Martin, for your question. And just for the record, everyone, we're not related. Martin has a double N in his name for Renard. What I'm going to do now is open the floor to anyone that would like to ask a question. And if I could just ask you to raise your hand using the raise the hand button, and then we can come to you. I appreciate it. I know that Les, if you've got any more further questions that haven't been answered, just pop them in the chat and we can pull them out, because I don't think you've got a microphone, have you? So is there anyone that has a question that would like to ask around any of the topics that we've discussed or shown you tonight? Maybe something that someone said that's posed some thought, or you've got a question that you'd like to ask. We've got the experts on here now, so now's your opportunity. If anyone wants to come off mic, that would be good. Simon.
I thought I'd start the ball rolling.
Good man.
There was a comment which I chipped in on about not being able to see other clubs' details on GMS. Because we used to get the old RFU handbook once a year, massive publication. That certificate was out of date before you got it. GMS would be the fantastic tool to do it. There is a tile there to allow you to look at other organisations, but you can't see the key roles that you used to be able to see in the handbook, which is quite frustrating. So therefore, you're trying to contact another club is very difficult.
Simon, thanks for the input. There's probably a helpful, well, definitely is a helpful suggestion. What would you see as the sort of key role holders that should be available? Do you see that as the same individuals that were previously in the handbook, or do you see?
Really, yes. So they were the key ones. The chairman, secretary. Quite often a fixtures contact would be quite useful. But what was in the handbook was pretty good, Matt, to be honest with you.
Yeah. No problem. We've got the as you highlighted there, and for people on the call that aren't as familiar, there's an organisation directory module there that was set out in GMS. So I think that as Simon's already mentioned, that's probably the best sort of role holder set place to view role holders at different clubs. So yeah, we can definitely look at that, Simon, and put that to FSI in terms of how we best enable that and what we are allowed to show. But as you previously mentioned, the public nature of that information previously probably lends itself to being relevant to place in that area.
Definitely, especially being a lot of clubs are using things like Pitch Hero, and trying to get hold of someone via Pitch Hero is a nightmare.
Yes. Yeah.
So the old book was great.
Okay.
Yeah. Great. Thanks for that. Yeah.
Thanks for the feedback there, Simon. As ever, very useful. So thank you. I'm going to come to Martin next, because your hand was up next.
I'm just unmute, Ian. Hello. One of the things of frustration was the recent update that happened at the weekend or last week. Through much confusion between qualifications and awards. A lot of my junior coaches lost some of their awards. The report has wiped out things like level 1 and level 2 awards as qualifications. So when I look at the report now, they're on one report, on the printed report, but not on their individual profile. I just think there's been a lack of thought by the developers or the coaching department as to what to include in this report. I flagged it up and not got a very satisfactory answer. I just wonder if it's something that's being addressed.
Yeah, Martin, I can jump in on that one. So that got flagged to me earlier today. That's a work in progress. That will be enabled again shortly. Basically, there's some work going on at the moment, some of which had to happen on the live environment, and some of which had to happen on the test environment. And in effect, some of those updates on the live environment have translated from some original requirements that we put to the third party with regard to some updates to qualifications. And that links into my point around the training report earlier. What we're really trying to...
sorry, the training report shows them as qualifications. Their individual record says they haven't got any qualifications.
Yeah, so
you know, it just makes me wonder if there's been any serious thought or testing got put into this, and it's just thrown in a hurry.
yeah,
I look at the report regularly, and it's a nonsense today.
Yeah, so Martin, what I'm probably trying to explain there is we're making sure that we do an audit on the qualifications that are held in live and ensuring that they map to a consistent set of RFU recognised qualifications that will then go and update the training report. So what we'll do is we'll flag that with the third party that it's been raised again on this call, but we did speak to them earlier that some of that information wasn't pulling through correctly. So rest assured that's on our radar and towards the top of the list. So we'll get an update out onto the known issues log on that, and that should be rectified very shortly. But what we are trying to do is make sure that that qualifications list is relevant and isn't pulling through every qualification that someone may have added from, say, the self-service element. And there's a little bit of
I agree there. I mean, my RFU preliminary award from 30 years ago is pretty out of date. My level 3 coach that got his award from UKCC last year, I think should be there.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's two different things.
Yeah, absolutely. No, in full agreement there. And yeah, we'll put an update on the known issues log, and that issue that you've highlighted this evening will be rectified shortly.
Okay.
Thanks for your question, Martin. Much appreciated, mate. I'm going to come to John because you've got your hand up.
Hello there. I've got an outstanding request about affiliation and the confusion of parents when they go to their dashboard. They've got a What's Next panel that has the wording affiliate to a club in it, and on the same dashboard they have an organisation panel that says affiliate as a player. Now if they affiliate to a club thinking that's what they should do because they're a parent and they want to belong to the club, they get affiliated. Why is the wording in those two areas different? I mean, you seem to have addressed half of the problem with your changes to the wording and not the full problem.
Yeah, thanks, John. I think the intention there really is to make sure that the parent only ever affiliates the age grade player unless they are affiliating themselves as a player, which is a scenario that could exist. I
know what the intention is, but it's not working. People are clicking on that affiliate to a club, which is under there, which just says that, not the child. It just says it's under their What's Next panel.
Okay, brilliant. Well, thank you for that feedback. What we'll do is we'll submit a change request with the third party provider if that's once we've taken a look and reviewed that, and then we could get them to update that wording. The wording in those areas should be a relatively quick change. So
we can certainly but I'm being told by the help desk that that's exactly what it's intended to be.
Okay. We'll take a look at that request, make sure that we've not got any inconsistencies in that space, but it does sound like there may be from your point there, and then if that's deemed to be the case, then we'll log that change request in with the third party, and that should be a quick turnaround. So again, we'll include that on the release notes should that be something that we're able to get into the next deployment, and that's taking place in looking like early December, so in the next couple of weeks.
Fine, thank you.
Thanks, John. Great. Is there any more questions or any more questions for anyone? I know, there we go. Melvin, I'll come to you.
I've had a problem since the weekend. All of my team sheets now have been duplicated. So instead of having 16 players on the one particular side, I've now got 32. All the names are just duplicated. Is there a problem there?
Didn't know about that, Melvin, sorry, but yeah, it definitely sounds like it from what you've described there. What apologies if I've missed it on the chat. Say that again, sorry.
Concert Rugby Club.
Okay, well, we'll take a look at that. That definitely shouldn't be happening. So if it is, we'll review that and then get that raised.
And the other thing is, for schools, it was always important for everybody, when I used to do the old way registration, I used to put the schools in, and I could do that personally. Now I can't, and most of the parents are not doing that. Could you put an asterisk on it and say that it has to be, or?
Yeah, we can put a mandated field against that. There was some discussions around whether that was something that we could mandate, but what we can do is mandate the field and then put a preferred not to say field on there. So that's something we'll pick up with the age grade department on the affiliation form and see if there's agreement that should be a mandated field. Definitely your point makes sense there. So
it just helps our coaches to go into which particular school we've got the most pupils from, you know, and players. Okay, thanks.
Cheers, Melvin.
Thanks, Melvin. And Martin, I'm going to come back to you, mate. Your hand's up again.
Unmuting again. We talked about the useful training report for coaches. It's something I raised 10 years ago, I would say, under Rugby First, as to say I would love to have a similar report on referees and referee qualifications, and also volunteers. You know, we've got a club volunteer coordinator who I've got no way of getting a list out of who is a volunteer and what other roles he has. I just think it's a simple, I know I can probably do it and crank something out using Excel, but just a user-friendly report, like the training report that we've had for some time now. And that was a carryover from Rugby First. Is a similar report on coach, referees and volunteers would be extremely useful, and I can't see as it's too big a job. That list of reports that you spoke about there hasn't changed in 5 years.
Well, we've introduced, I'll pick up a couple of points there, Martin. So we have introduced about 3 or 4 new reports into that list, and that team and clubs element there was introduced in the last sort of few months. But absolutely, we can look at some of the pre-built reports that are available in there and making sure that they're as useful as possible for clubs. As you mentioned, there is a way to get that information out from the people grid at the moment. So if you were to open up the people area, select role, choose the relevant roles that you'd like to incorporate. So maybe that's anybody with a volunteer role, and then choose qualifications. What that'll do is that'll showcase all of the individuals that have a particular role, and then all of the qualifications that those individuals have.
But if you think of all the other roles that don't have the volunteer role, like officers and coaches, there's a whole range of people, maybe 20, 40, 50 people at a club. Yeah, I can go through them all and wade away, giving them all the volunteer roles so that I can then get that report out. But it's a chore.
There's a few different ways.
There must be an easier way to do it.
Yeah, absolutely. Like there's nothing stopping us from doing some scoping there in terms of that. What would be helpful with a sort of a one-click exercise. I suppose on that grid, probably the point I'm trying to make is there's flexibility there to complete those filters whichever way you see fit, right? So you could pick, show me everybody that's got X type of qualification, and then that will bring back anybody that has that qualification regardless of the role. And then you could pick, show me anybody that has a date of birth between X date and Y date that has a particular role and a particular
I understand all that, Matt, but if I wanted to have a bash at Christmas and say I want to invite all my volunteers down the club on Sunday, I've got to hand crank it out. There's not an easy way of getting it out.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah, that'll make sense, Martin. Just wanted to make sure you're aware of where to get that info. Should there be sort of a case by case? But what we'd probably ask for, Martin, in that space, if possible, is chucking a suggestion into service desk around how you would see that report structured. And what we're actually focusing on quite a lot internally at the moment is just some of our engagement channels and how we go about refining the way that we pick up some of the suggestions that are being put into this service desk to make sure that we've got a consolidated view of some of the most relevant updates that are being requested. and then we'll go and put those through the relevant channels to make sure that we can we can build those in. But certainly, what you've suggested is possible.
Thank you.
Great, thank you.
Thanks, Ian.
Cheers,
you,
Martin. Top stuff. And thanks, Matt, for your answer. John Austin, I'm going to come to you.
Hello there, Ian. Sorry, I'm not on camera. I'm not
No
trying to
problem
hide from anybody.
That's all right, mate.
You made the comment earlier that electronic match card was likely to become mandatory, particularly for junior sides. We have an issue with that in that we play our Colts in the Scottish Border League. So most of their season is against Scottish clubs rather than English clubs. I suspect you got the same issue probably down on the Welsh borders as well. We are not the only club. There are 3 other English clubs that play in Scotland. I was sent a link to the relevant part of the website, which described it as there were no clubs playing more than 7 cross-border games in a season. Well, we clearly are. We have CB approval for that as a blanket approval. So something needs to be addressed on that. Otherwise, we cannot use the electronic match card for our Colts.
Hi, John. Yeah, I can probably pick up on that. So thanks for the point and the question. And you're absolutely right in terms of some of the limitations there. Before we'd roll anything out and mandate that across the age grade game, we'd certainly have to think about any implications in those sort of those areas, and particularly from a geographical perspective, we fully understand what you're saying there. I think that what you're referring to online may be related to the international ticketing allocation and how that's sort of stipulated and drawn together.
I was just going to come to that. Yeah, that's obviously adversely affecting our allocation, which is clearly not fair.
So it doesn't. It does. Well, I'll rephrase that. It doesn't need to. So what can happen there is that via the CB approval, once you have that CB approval for those fixtures can be then added manually into the ticketing allocation calculations. For the benefit of everyone on the call, why that's quite difficult for us at the moment is the jurisdiction around that data, and obviously any players that may fit within that. So if those teams and those clubs are from a separate union, there's a difficulty there in terms of us recording those clubs, and then particularly any individuals that would be involved in those fixtures. So that's a little bit of a challenge for us that I certainly don't have an answer for this evening, other than, John, that is something that we recognise that would be a barrier to mandating any of those processes from a match card perspective. Just to reassure you though, on the international ticketing element, if you liaise with your CB there, that's definitely something that can be incorporated in terms of the total number of fixtures that you're playing at your club from a cross-border perspective.
Okay, that's great. Thank you very much indeed.
Thanks, John.
Cheers.
Thanks very much for that question, John, and for your answer, Matt. I'm now going to, I don't think that anyone else's hands are up, so I'm going to just bring in John Con, our head of technology, who just wants to mention something around our GMS review that is going to be taking place. So, John, over to you, mate.
Yeah, thanks, Ian. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for your time this evening, and certainly the time over the last few weeks to those who've been able to join. Thank you for the feedback that's been provided. You know, we are trying to listen intently and understand which of the bits that we can move on quickly, and some of the bits are a bit more difficult for us, which we need to sort of work through. And I hope you'll appreciate that that's a process we need to work through, but something that we're striving to try and make these improvements so that we are doing the things that actually will make the biggest difference, you know, for our clubs. You know, I think in response to a lot of the feedback over the last few months, you may have seen as we sort of communicated through the CGU that we are going to be doing an independent review, and that is something that we'll be mobilizing over the coming months. And really, that's an opportunity where we'll be looking to engage with clubs, CBs, and volunteers and players and other stakeholders, looking to really understand the needs, you know, and the things that will make a big difference. So to help us inform our longer term strategy of what we do in this space. So at this stage, probably highlight that it's happening. We'll continue to communicate through the CGU, and we'll try and find the best way to sort of reach out to sort of give everyone an opportunity where possible to come forward and participate in that. But it really is a commitment to try and understand the capabilities that we try and provide today versus actually the things that would, like I say, make a biggest difference to whether that's running a club, participating in the game, and how we then look to sort of what we're able to do in the short, medium and long term, but all with a much more consistent strategic theme about making sure that we as the NGB are doing the things that are in the best interest in the game and helping it grow and thrive across the country. So, and hopefully you'll see more sessions like this. So this has been a series that we've run over the last 5 weeks. We also recognize that, I'm sure it probably would have been more helpful if it was several months ago prior to probably the busy part of the season. And I think you'll have to probably just accept our apologies for that, as we have ourselves just been trying to balance the multiple things that we've been trying to do with our own constraints. But I think there's a real commitment that we recognize the communication and the engagement is such a fundamental part to helping everyone perform the roles that they're trying to do and that they're giving up their time to do. And it's on us to try and make that as streamlined and easy as possible through the platforms that we provide and the processes that you're asked to follow. So probably just in closing, thank you again for the time. Any further thoughts and feedback in the short term, we would ask that you probably follow the existing process of raising those as tickets into the help desk. We do consolidate, we do track those, so that does give us a way of reporting on that. And like I said, please watch this space as we communicate more details of our review, which will be taking place over the coming months.
Thanks, John. And thanks everyone tonight. Just one final thing before we go. Chris is just going to pop in our feedback form into the chat. We just really would like to get your feedback on this session, and so we can help shape these future sessions. So your feedback's really important to us. So please, it probably takes about 1 minute to fill in, just over a minute, so not long. You could do it now before you go and get a cup of tea, and then that will really help us. So thanks for joining tonight. Thanks for everyone involved, presenters, Amy, Matt, and everyone in the chat. And thanks most importantly to you guys, the volunteers, for giving up your time tonight and attending this session. Please do share this session with your colleagues and other volunteers within your clubs. It will be on our RFU YouTube page, and Chris will be following up with information and the slide deck that you can share with people post this session. So have a good evening, and we'll hope to run more things like John just alluded to in the future, and enjoy your rugby this weekend.